Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DCL Show, your source for Disney cruise news and reviews, coming to you from the Bob Varley studio. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined this week by my good friends, Mr. John Sicari.
Hello.
Mr. Rhino Clavin.
Hello.
Via Skype, Ms. Elaine Edwards.
Hey, friends.
And our producer, Mr. Craig Williams.
Ahoy, hoy.
And just a reminder, this show, along with all the content we produce, brought to you by DreamsUnlimitedTravel.com. And if you like our content, please show your support. Book your next Disney Cruise Line vacation through Dreams Unlimited. You're going to get a shipboard credit up to $1,000. You're going to get the services of a tremendous agent like Miss Elaine Edwards to help you navigate, no pun intended, the waters of your trip. How far can I take this metaphor?
She won't drown you in the details. I don't know. It feels a little aggressive.
That's a little much. And you get that all for the same price you're going to pay Disney. So you get the service, the shipboard credit, same price you're going to pay Disney. So please, DreamsUnlimitedTravel.com. This week, we are going to be talking about our recent sailing to Alaska. If you were watching some weeks ago when we did a show talking about Alaska, I was inspired to book a trip and was within a few days of recording that show that I had everything booked. So we all went to Vancouver, stayed in Vancouver for a couple of nights before the cruise, which was amazing because Vancouver is an incredible city. And then did our 7 nights on the Wonder up to Alaska, and that's what we're going to talk about this week. Do we want to give some love to Vancouver at the beginning of this?
I think that's kind of important because that way it'll help people decide how many days they potentially would want to stay before or after.
I can highly recommend spending a few days in Vancouver, either before or after your cruise. We stayed at the Pan Pacific, and there are a few hotels in the area of the port. Right across from us was the Fairmont Waterfront, I believe it was called.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Craig, the one you were in was the Fairmont Vancouver?
Pacific Rim?
Pacific Rim,
Pacific
correct,
Rim.
yes.
Which isn't too far. But the difference is that the Pan Pacific Hotel is actually attached to the port. So when you check out and you call Bell Services to get your luggage, you have your cruise luggage tags on there. They take them right from your hotel room onto the ship. And you don't have to worry about dealing with your bags again. It is a really, really nice service. A really nice service. They do charge, I think it was $7.50 per bag as a service charge for doing that.
I remember giving the guy $5 a bag.
Or maybe it was $5.
But I thought that was the tip. I don't know if that was...
We were never charged anything in a room, but I did because one of you had texted us and said it's $5 a bag. I handed him $10. I don't know. Maybe he kept it as a tip. He never told us at any point there was a charge, though.
See, when I called Bell Services, they mentioned something to me about it.
Wow, okay. Yeah, no, that my experience was Elaine's, where I gave him a tip and I thought that was it.
Okay. That process of going from the hotel
Seamless.
was seamless, but we had a chance to explore Vancouver, and by explore, I mean go shopping. And eating. And let me tell you something.
Oh, the food.
The food in Vancouver was amazing. Amazing. We found this one place where we actually did a vlog on it. It'll be coming out on the channel called Tap and Barrel. It was a short walk from the hotel on the other side of the convention center. And the food, I'll save it for the review. The food was so good.
You want to drop the hint of that burger?
Peanut butter and jelly burger. Peanut butter and jelly burger.
Sounds horrible, but wait for the review.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good because the jelly was like a bacon jam.
Bacon jam, yeah. But even when they first said it to you, your face was like PB&J burger. Then we learned.
But I tried it, and it was delicious. So we have a bunch of stuff like that coming out. Rhino, what was your favorite? You got a chance to actually go around the city more than I did. What was your favorite part of Vancouver?
Oh, I don't know if it's hard to pin it. I was thinking like how many days would I recommend to somebody to stay? And I think we were definitely there. I would have felt I wanted to stay again on the night when you guys stayed when you got back, but unfortunately I had to be back for my dogs. But we were there for 3 nights, and I was like, I wish I could just be here for a whole week, because Vancouver is a very like diverse city in terms of like people, setup, all that sort of stuff, because you have that area right near the port, which is very beautiful. I know exactly the restaurant you're talking about, because ironically, I think I was sitting outside while you guys were inside. I was watching the sunset from the pier, and when you guys said Tap and Barrel, I'm like, why did I remember that? Like, because it was right behind me. So I was just outside watching the sunset on the pier, which was beautiful. But then there's also this part that's like, you could walk or you could take a lift that is like Stanley Park, which is a very like wooded beach area where there's a lot of like wilderness paths, and you can ride bikes up there and things like that, and that's beautiful. There's actually a brewery like nestled in there, and then there's some like tennis courts. It's crazy how quickly each area of the city changes. But I also took a ride out to East Vancouver, which again is like a completely different vibe. Whereas where we were staying, we were in one of the downtown, like one of the downtowns where it's like a lot of skyscrapers, a lot of interesting architecture. East Vancouver was a lot of low buildings. It was a lot of like, nothing was really over like a couple of stories. And it was more of like, I'd use the word hipster, sort of like a lot of small boutique stores. I will tell you, I went to a restaurant there called La Mezcaleria, and it was like the best, some of the best food I had ever had. And the owner of the shop was very attractive, so that helped the food go down nice and easy. But yeah, I loved it there. I went to Gastown one night too, which was also really cool. That's where they have the steam powered clock. Am I using that correctly?
It's a steam clock, yeah.
I don't want to sound like steampunk clock. Yeah. But also, again, another vibe completely. It's crazy how quickly it can be like a different vibe. And I also walked down where a lot of the museums were, and that was cool too. That was closer to the shopping district where I think you guys were at, and tons of shops to go into, of course, there too. And then as you're going out from between there and the airport, it's just kind of like neighborhoods that have a lot of these. I always call them Pinocchio houses, but I know that's not the word. It starts with a T. It's the houses that look like they're white, sometimes like beige colored, but they have the wood planks that are like pasted on the outside.
I know
Troubadour, something like that. I don't know. But it was crazy to me. And they have public transit that can take you everywhere too, which is very reliable. And I was like, I think I want to like move here. Like I
could see myself living there.
Everybody it was so friendly. It was like, I felt like I was inconveniencing anybody. They were all so nice. Like, what was great too? I don't know if you guys experienced this. Anytime you have to pay for anything, somebody walks up to you with the thing to pay for it. So it was never like you had to get up and do anything, but it was also like pride flags everywhere, a sticker on every window. They were flying them up with the flag everywhere. So it's a very LGBT friendly,
high class friendly city. And I'm from Long Island, and we would go to Manhattan and I'd be scared to walk around. I was not scared in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm naive about the bad parts, but it felt really friendly and nice.
Safe.
Yeah.
It felt really
Granville
safe.
Island, I would definitely recommend going to. That's literally like walking distance from the hotel, where it's just like the little teeny island there that you can take like a ferry. I mean, you can drive in, I think too, but there's a lot of like local, like a lot of shops, like small businesses in there, and a lot of like art displays and things like that. That was really cool too. But I watched the sunset on the beach outside of Stanley Park that last night too, and it was one of those things where I couldn't stop taking pictures and video, but I was just like, it's just not doing this justice. I can't get it. Like, where it's just like, it gave me very like New England vibes with better weather. That it was very like, it still had that West Coast laid back kind of feeling to it, but it still had that aesthetic of like where I grew up in Massachusetts, but then like mountains everywhere. I can't say enough good things about it. It was an absolutely incredible city. I gotta go back.
Now, Craig got there a little later.
Yeah, but it was my third time in Vancouver. And I would say bare minimum, you'll want one full day to experience everything, because it also depends on what type of vacationer you are. If you have kids, like if you're going as a family, you're probably going to want to go over to North Vancouver to Grouse Mountain and the suspension bridge that they have over there. That's very family friendly activities.
Absolutely
you
not.
can
That's
do
like hundreds of feet in the air. I would have died. You would have found the dead body on a bridge.
But normal people would like it. And bike riding around Stanley Park, that takes a couple hours if you want to experience it that way. So if you're the type of traveler that I am, that I'm a go person, I could hit all of the highlights of Vancouver in one day with walking around mostly. But if you want to take your time and really soak in the city, I would say minimum 2 days at that point. But I'm a very different traveler than a lot of people. I don't need breaks, but that was basically my time in Vancouver at this point, was just taking baths and catching up on jet lag. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see as much of the city this time around that I wanted to, but in my 3 times in Vancouver, I think like I know the highlights. I know what I need to do again. I know what I could skip in the future.
Yeah. And it's just a gorgeous city, and can't recommend it highly enough. Mm-hmm. Give yourself a couple days in Vancouver to kind of soak it up. And it's a nice way to, like, especially after a crazy travel day, getting in there. You don't want to fly in the day of your cruise. You don't want to do that. So give yourself a couple days. And this way, when you get on the ship, it was really relaxing. Embarkation was very relaxing, again, because didn't have to wrestle with my luggage or any of that stuff. You just go right from the hotel onto the ship.
For people, though, that do want to stay at a different hotel or stay deeper into the city, embarkation is still relatively easy. You just get dropped off right by the hotel entrance for the Pan Pacific, because that's also where you would either go to park for the cruise or where you would go for embarkation and walk down stairs or a ramp, and it takes you kind of right directly under the hotel. First thing you hit is the bag drop area, and if you don't have your tags, then they'll obviously tag and take them away, or if you have it tagged already, you can hand them off, and then you would join the normal corral of going through customs and starting your embarkation procedures. But you can also just drop your bags off earlier and then head back out and enjoy a little bit more of the city, because embarkation time, that boarding time cuts off at 4 p.m. So if you drop your bags off at noon and you don't necessarily want to just hang out on the ship, you want to get a taste of Vancouver, I would, go back off for a couple hours and then come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, coming from the Pan Pacific, embarkation was a breeze. Got on the ship and instantly reminded why I love the wonder, the magic and the wonder, the original Disney Cruise Line ships, especially after having just been on the Wish twice. I will take the Wonder over the Wish any day of the week. Any day of the week. It was laid out properly.
And it does not feel that much smaller. It didn't. I mean, the ship, the length of it, but the hallways and stuff did not feel.
No.
Which shocked me again.
I disagree with that. It does feel small, but I prefer small. I was never a fan of the Royal Caribbean mega ships either. It just, I like the intimate experience. I will say it was nice being on deck 6, where the furthest we'd ever go down was deck 3, and the furthest we'd go up was 10. So I think we maybe only took the elevators like maybe under 5 times for an entire week, just because it's so easy to get up and down.
I just want to quantify what I was saying. Like the atrium, smaller, but like when you go to the stores, I just felt like those hallways were as big as the Wish, if not larger. It just felt like more room was there. I don't know, it was odd.
I feel like certain spaces that you knew you were on a smaller ship. The atrium was the biggest one for me, because it was very, very, very intimate compared to the dream and the fantasy. I can't compare it to the Wish yet. In 2 weeks, I can. But even out on the pool deck, I could feel that the areas were a little bit more intimate and that kind of thing. But all of the theaters were still very large. All of the main dining rooms were very large. All of the lounges, they were all good sized, but I liked the unique theming from them and how they were completely different than the other ships.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I love the Wonder. I love the Wonder. And experiences like this cruise are one of the reasons why I love the Wonder, because that's when I'm on the Wonder, it's do Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas with Caribbean cruises, you know, the ship is certainly a destination with Disney Cruise Line in general, but, you know, the ports, you know, you're really interested in the ports. And that's true with an Alaska cruise as well. However, one of the best parts of this ship, of this sailing, is the process of getting to the ports and how gorgeous the scenery and experiences are. You sail the inside passage, which, especially if you're sensitive to motion, makes this a very stable cruise, because going up the inside passage, you have land on both sides. So you're not getting any motion from the ship. And it's the most incredible scenery. And they take you up the inside passage and you go to a glacier. Now we ended up at Dawes
Sawyer.
or Sawyer.
Yeah.
Sawyer Glacier.
We're supposed to go to Dawes, I think, and then
Right.
to the other one.
There was something happened that we couldn't get in where Dawes was. So we ended up at Sawyer Glacier. And the ship gets fairly close. I mean, not right up on top of it, but it gets fairly close. But you can do an excursion. If you really want to get close to the glacier, there's an excursion you can do where you get off the ship onto a tender boat, and the tender boat takes you right up to the glacier. And we had the opportunity to experience that. And Rhino, I know you were blown away.
Oh yeah, it was. Unfortunately, it was the one day where I feel like we had the one day of the entire trip. We had like the rain was kind of coming and going, but Elaine and Craig, I know it was one of those where we'd stay out on the deck until it was like I couldn't move my hands anymore. But it was just like, you don't want to look away, because it's absolutely, it's just beautiful. And it does get really close, and it's crazy to see like the ice in the water as you're going through. But then also what I thought was really cool on this excursion is they pulled a chunk of ice from the glacier out of the water, and they made drinks with it. So you could get a glacier Rita that we also really enjoyed as well. So it was just like one of those weird where you're like, here I am in Alaska at a glacier. There's a waterfall behind me here, sipping on this margarita that was just made with this ice out of this water. That was just like one of those like surreal moments where you're just, you know, especially coming from like Florida where it's very flat, palm trees, everything, you know, it was just one of those where it's like I don't know. I loved it. It was really cool. We got to see seals that were on top of there was a whole like bunch of them on top of the ice caps. I don't think that's the right word, but it was something else, because I don't know that that's the first time I've ever seen a glacier. It has to be.
What they call it, calving, when we saw the ice actually.
Calving, when the ice
break
comes off.
Oh yeah, I missed it by a second. It was literally one of those, like, I was looking at something right here, and then I could hear the crack, and I turned, and it was like, you could see the splash happening. So my camera has the thing hitting it, but you can't see what's going on. I'm like, oh man.
The excursion to get on the smaller boat and go so close to the glacier, that is, if you're a nature person, that is something you have to go for. I have to imagine that is one of the coolest things that I've ever done. And the only thing I'll say, if you can't get on there, that's not taking away anything from seeing a glacier from the ship. Disney, every time I thought we were at the point where we were going to stop and not get closer, they just kept creeping in even closer and closer and closer. And like, So I was shocked at the view from the top deck still. So it's not, if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. But if you have the chance, it's so cool.
And I'm trying to remember what the cost of that excursion was. I want to say
$264
per person.
Can I talk a little about the logistics of it for people? A lot. Pete had been on this before, but the rest of us had not. And so we were all talking amongst ourselves, like we didn't even know what kind of boat this was even going to be. So just to kind of give people a little bit of information about this, it is very large, and it is about three levels. And we were kind of discussing how many people we thought it hold. I would say it's less than 200. It may even be closer to 100. I don't know. But there is a very small gangway that you have to maneuver that can be steep depending upon water levels to get off the ship. And then once you get on, it's all indoor. It's indoor seating that you sit down on. And there's a lower level, and then there's the middle level that is, again, indoor seating that you sit as they're making their way out. They then open up the decks on the second level so you can go outside and start taking pictures, videos, that kind of thing. And then once they actually get to the glacier and they're parked, essentially, there is a third level with a staircase that they open up that you can go up that's just completely open. And if you are able to, be outside as much as you can. I took a backpack with me that I had a raincoat in, I had a sock hat, I had gloves, and I already had a few layers on because, as Rhino said, it was very windy. It was also, we were having on and off rain, but it wasn't like cold, like dead of winter.
Not to your bones. It wasn't that cold.
Right. It wasn't cold. It was just we were getting wind and rain. It was like 50s. But we were still bundled up because we were getting wind and rain. So you weren't like freezing. But like in my opinion, I was like, this is my only chance that I'm going to be able to do this. And I wanted to be outside on the deck as much as I could just to experience it and take as much pictures, videos, that kind of thing as I could. And so even though when we got back on the ship, I mean, I was soaked like head to toe. Like I held my clothes were very wet, but it didn't matter because I had every single picture. I have this absolutely huge smile on my face about how amazing the experience was.
I think of all the excursions I've done on cruises, that was the best one.
Definitely.
That was the best one and worth every penny of that. Mm-hmm. It's an expensive excursion, to be sure.
It's
especially when you're paying for... 77 people.
Long, and we were kind of wondering because we got out there and we're like, so what? Are we just going to sit here for 3 hours? Like, what happens? You sit at the glacier for about 1 hour, and they get very close. I mean, it's chunks of ice, and they are maneuvering through chunks of ice and getting there, and they kind of turn a little bit, but they are essentially at the glacier for about an hour, and then they start making their way through up close to the mountains and the land around, and they'll take you to waterfalls and they'll look for wildlife. I mean, we saw mountain goats on the side of the hills. There was other things, and then they would circle around the Wonder, and you got some amazing pictures of the Wonder.
Oh yeah.
So
it's crazy because I'm not somebody who likes like super long excursions because I worry like, oh, now I'm trapped and I gave up all my free time. Like it goes by like that. I can't. You just said 3 hours, and I was like, it felt like we were there for like 30 minutes total. It was crazy how quick it just all went by because it's just like you're, I think, absorbing it. And you're right. I forgot about that. We saw the goats too and the waterfalls and everything. It was just one of those things where you're like, no picture, no video is going to do this justice. And so sometimes you just have to like put it down and just soak it in for a little bit and be like, look where you are. Look at this. Yeah. Feel it.
Yeah, it was an amazing excursion. It really was. Craig, you enjoyed it?
Oh yeah. No, it was magnificent. So I hope I have the chance to do it again if I'm ever on Disney again.
If you ever do Disney again.
With Alaska? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you've done it with other cruise lines.
Yeah.
Do you feel the price difference is worth it?
I do not.
You don't.
No, I don't.
See, I disagree.
You still have never done a one-way going to Anchorage with Glacier Bay, and being on that kind of a trip is completely different from the loop, where you're just either going to Vancouver doing the 3 Alaskan ports, or starting in Seattle doing 2 Alaskan ports, and then hitting Victoria in that. And those closed loop cruises are they're very cool. In Disney, I will say there is something about being on the Wonder that is very comfortable. If the food would have been better on this one, I probably would also have a differing opinion, but I thought the food was just mediocre pretty much the entire time.
Well, I think you're being kind.
Well, and so, yeah, I'm being a little bit kind with it. So then, obviously, you do have that Disney feeling to it, but just in terms of it, I think, I hate throwing the numbers out there when I don't remember exactly, but like doing the one way on Princess, having Glacier Bay National Park in there, ending in Anchorage, we had outside view staterooms that were like obstructed view, so you couldn't really see much, but it was basically a step up from inside. I think my parents got 3 staterooms of that for just about $6,000 total to have all of us with gratuities included and shipboard credit already attached. I think it was like $100 per room. And, if your sailing's packed up and, it's costing $6,000 for one stateroom, I wouldn't be able to justify it as much. If you have kids though, that's where I will say there is a bigger difference. On other cruise lines that aren't as kid-oriented, I think they'd get bored. The kids on our cruise were constantly going in and out of the clubs like they would any Disney cruise. They were always in the pools, which was blowing my mind. Even when it was cold, they were swimming. And then, of course, having characters all over the place all the time in special Alaskan outfits on a couple of the days. Like there's enough to justify it for families. But for an adult, I would say, look, if you're not happy with the price, maybe look at a different itinerary and a different cruise line, because I think you can do it better, cheaper. Just my opinion.
Well, I've done it on Royal. I've done it on Norwegian. And these were all, round trip cruises, not one way. So I feel like I'm comparing apples to apples with that. And under no circumstances do I feel the money I saved was worth it on those, even with the food being as bad as it was on the Wonder. The service, the ship, the entertainment, everything about it was superior to Royal and Norwegian, in my opinion. So for this sailing, I want to say, for a balcony stateroom, I think I paid $3,000 for 2 people.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, that's not bad for any 7-night cruise, let alone Alaska. Now it's unusually low for this itinerary, because I guess they were having trouble getting people on the ship. So they were keeping the pricing reasonable. But normally it's going to be more than that. But that's one of the reasons I jumped on this, was because I could do it and get, we wanted people in each category: inside, outside, veranda, concierge. I'll let you guess who was in concierge. And, we did the Matterport, the 3D tour of each category of stateroom. So we were able to get a lot accomplished with that. But, I personally I feel the money we spent, because we did not utilize travel agent rates or anything like that for this. We paid the same thing everybody else does. And I felt the money was well spent.
Yeah, I thought with Rhino and I were in the inside stateroom, which was comfortable. Even being an inside, we chose one of the ones that were where you walk in and the couch is in front, like directly in front of you. So the sideways inside staterooms, and those felt way more roomier than a normal inside stateroom. So I would do that again. And the nice part is with Disney, I will say it does have the entertainment to help fill in the gaps. So like on the final day at sea coming back, it was raining for a little bit. We popped in and saw Thor for a little bit because it was like, you know what else can we do? So it is nice having that entertainment. The only other thing that kind of hacked me off a little bit specifically with Disney is they've got to negotiate a better parking spot for Juneau, because like with Disney, if that's one of the premier ships and you're paying a premium to be on there, like they drop you off in Juneau as far out as you can get. So it's about a 25 to 30 minute walk to the city if you're a fast walker, or they do a bus shuttle that runs about every 15 minutes ish. But yeah,
we did this. We did the shuttle. It wasn't bad.
The shuttle was fine. It was actually running a lot faster than every 15 minutes, in my opinion. But there is something that's the only thing that I'm like with Disney, with the name of Disney, it would be great at all the ports if you could just park and walk off and you're right there in it. And at the other two, Skagway and Ketchikan, you are. But with Juneau, it's a bit of a hike.
Well, it's based on seniority, and that's why. It's not about negotiating a spot. It's based on seniority. And these other cruise lines are older and more established than Disney Cruise Line is.
That makes perfect sense then.
So,
yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's based on seniority.
The more you know.
The more you know. Now, we alluded to the food on this sailing, and I will tell you that Craig called it mediocre, and he was being very kind. It was atrocious. It wasn't mediocre. It was atrocious. We did have some good meals. Won't say that every meal was awful. I will say Palo was superb. Both brunch and dinner were superb, flawless meals. And again, reviews of all these restaurants coming out. So I don't want to give too much away here other than to say, the best dish I had in any of the main dining rooms was the beef Wellington.
Oh, yeah.
It was so tender I could cut it with a fork, and it was very tasty. That they did really well. Outside of that, French onion soup that tasted like it had been made with cleaning solution. I think that's the analogy I use in the review. Just terrible. And there's no excuse for it. There's no legitimate excuse for the food to be that bad. It's clear they don't want to spend the money. They want to charge the money. They don't want to spend it, though. And on an itinerary like this, the food should be superb.
And Jackie ordering wild Alaskan salmon that she finds out from the waiter is actually Chilean.
Chilean salmon.
From Chile. They shouldn't do that.
I would recommend to people that eat as much in the ports as you can.
Yeah.
Because the food, and honestly, in every one of the ports that we went to, I thought was like really good. Like we had, I think it was, what was the fish that I
Halibut.
had? Halibut fish and chips was like the best fish and chips I ever had. That was in Skagway. And then when we were in Ketchikan, we went to this one place that Craig had known. I think you had been there before. That was just like right outside of the port. It was like you couldn't see it from the port because there was like one over. Oh my god, the best salmon! Like salmon. It's like I had the salmon burger. Oh, so good, so good. We actually went to eat there twice that day. That's how good it was. We went with Elaine, so we got the fish and chip sampler. So we tried all the fish there, but it was so good.
It was great because you could try all three, and I'm not a fish eater, and I tried all three, and I'm like, these are amazing. So it was a great experience for me.
What did you think of the food, John?
You know, I would say mediocre. I didn't find it as bad as you, but I thought that some of it was really just not great, and Palo was fantastic. We wanted to go to Palo every night.
Yeah, it all just felt very cafeteria-like, and I get it. That's what it is. They are essentially floating cafeterias trying to feed a lot of people, but it felt like it's really starting to show. And I don't ever want to sound elitist and be like, yeah, Apollo was the only good thing to go for, because like I love on the Wonder that like on the top deck in the boiler bites, they have shawarma that you can have as long as it's open, and that's always excellent. Even just getting burgers and fries on the top deck at times was better than what we were getting in the dining rooms. What's that?
Yeah. We grabbed pizza when this was again on Dawes Glacier Day, which I do want to make sure that we talk about the characters on Dawes Glacier Day, because people need to know about that. But when we were running back and forth, I'm like, I need something. And I literally just grabbed a slice of pizza, and it was great.
Yeah. I think the best way for me to describe it is still going with that cafeteria feel to it, but it's even beyond that. Like getting mixed drinks on the ship, it just felt like it never was more apparent that like, I don't think these people were bartenders before they got on this ship. I think they were just put in that position, and now they're just throwing the ingredients together. There's an art missing to it that I'll definitely say, even though I can't review the Wish, it was on the Wish. It wasn't on the Wonder. So it all felt lackluster. I never went hungry, but I also never was like, my mind is blown.
Yeah, the main dining rooms on the Wish never felt cafeteria to me.
No.
This did, as Craig said.
No, the food on the Wish was much better than the Wonder. That I'll give it. What else?
Cove Cafe.
Cove Cafe.
It was just dead center. It was a wonderful destination with wonderful people. Shout out to Daniela and Nadja and Dewa, I think his name was. It was just, you loved it. We all loved it. It was just, again, we're not going there for food. You're going there for coffee or hot cocoa. It was just wonderful. And it was a great spot where you got to know people, and I loved it.
Yeah, Cove was great. That was a great highlight. What was the highlight for you, Rhino?
On the ship, I did actually really like that shawarma station. I was hesitant, and it was like surprisingly delicious. I thought the brunch at Paolo was definitely a highlight for sure. I liked that. Our server, was it Rodrigo?
Ricardo.
He was fantastic.
Phenomenal.
Excellent server. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I agree with you guys on the dining rooms. For me, particularly, I feel like they took way too long. It was way too involved. But
yeah, we waited 45 minutes a lot of times.
Well, that's
I say a highlight for me, and I wish we had gone there more than just that last night, trying to get it in really quick, was that not Tiana's place, but the bayou that was like right outside of Tiana's place, that was like the bar that's kind of, yeah, that was like, they had some singers out there that last night, and what Craig said is I 100% agree with, is that I don't think on a Disney ship anybody is actually a bartender on a Disney ship. I think they're just people who look at a list of ingredients. But I felt like there was where I got closest to it, because they made a pretty decent drink there twice. I think I might have had 2 drinks there, but I just sat in like the back corner and just watched the singers, and I thought it was like, oh, I should have been doing this all along. Like, this was the spot. Like, it was really cool. I definitely would recommend. And there was never a lot of people in there either, so it was like, but it was really cool. I don't know. It was a nice out of the way place. I liked that a lot.
The Tiana's entertainment was fantastic.
Oh, the singer! My God, that whole band was phenomenal.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
in Tiana's place, the entertainment on our second night in Tiana's,
right? So good.
They do Mardi Gras, and they have a live band playing. And when I tell you, the entertainment was breathtaking, how good it was, and how they got the entire restaurant like into it, on their feet, marching around, doing a big conga line around the restaurant. It was really cool. It was really, really cool. That was awesome. I mean, overall,
I have one complaint, not about Tiana's, but about the ship in general, is that because they're ships that were designed, I feel like, to specifically cruise out of like Mediterranean or like not Mediterranean. What did I mean to say? The Bahamas, like down there. Yeah, and They could use an Alaska playlist on the outside deck because you'd be looking at mountains and be like, you feeling hot, hot, hot? Would be like,
Oh no, they were playing a lot
in the smoking area.
in the smoking area.
in the
at
smoke.
least.
So on the backside, it must have just been the weird.
We were getting Davy Crockett and
But we were also getting a lot of just like theme music.
Frontier.
That-
music.
was
I would have
incredible.
loved that. I must have just been in the one spot where they forgot to plug it through the speaker because it was a lot of like steel drums and like Caribbean music and stuff. And I was like, this is a weird so I would just put my headphones in and make my own playlist and just like sit and watch and be emo the whole time.
Last thing to mention also, the characters in their Alaskan outfits. That was pretty great. Before it rained and we were outside and you saw the mountains and you saw Minnie Mouse in her fur coat. It was nice.
So if you are playing, if this is important to you, you need to plan for this.
Oh yeah.
Because the characters in their Alaska outfits on the top deck with the mountains and the glaciers and everything going on behind it only happens on Dawes Glacier Day. And it is like running a marathon if you want to hit all of these characters, because they will say, let's say Mickey is scheduled for 11 o'clock. He's on the very top deck on one side, and we lined up half an hour ahead of time, and we were still like, if he's at one funnel, we're all the way at the other funnel. It was a good 20-minute line, and we got all the way up to him right before they pulled him. And then immediately, because Minnie starts meeting like 11:30, then you had to immediately run to get in her line because she's getting ready to get pulled, and they switched out Mickey to make Donald. So you're going back and forth between the two of them, trying to get to the front of the line before they rotate to the next character, and he's like gone forever. So I'm just saying, plan for that. If you're doing the glacier excursion, you're going to want the second one, or else you're going to miss these characters. If you do the early one, you're not going to see these characters. So it is something that you have to plan for in order to make happen. But for me, it was worth it.
Yeah.
So
If you're in the first 5 people for the very first one that's going to kick off, you are setting yourself up that you will not wait very long. You'll still have to wait for the characters to come out, but you'll be able to be first in line for the next one. You can hit them all in one big swoop, and you can get that all done. The only problem with it that I hate they choose this day to do it is if you care about seeing the mountains, taking photos, taking videos, you are missing out on so much while you are waiting in line for these characters. If it's on the top deck, you're still seeing it, and yeah, you can still get it in, but it's just it's if something's happening on the opposite side of the ship while you're waiting on the other side, you're missing out. So I don't know why they can't just put the characters in their outfits the entire freaking cruise.
Thank you. Yeah.
I said the same thing for Marvel Day at Sea, Star Wars Day at Sea, all these special ones they do. Your people are on there for that. I don't need to see Captain Mickey in his outfit for the 50th year in a row. Put in Alaska. Show me their outfits for Alaska.
Show me their clothes. Show me their outfits.
Craig out.
I think it was like night 5 or 6. We did see a couple of them meeting in the atrium in their outfits. However, again, it was like late. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and it was down in the atrium. So for me, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for top deck, mountains in the background. You know, it's something that you have to plan for.
All right. So that's a look at our sailing to Alaska. In the coming weeks, we're going to be talking specifically about the different ports. As I mentioned, we have a lot of vlogs that we recorded while we were on the ship that will be coming out as well. So please stay tuned to youtube.com/DCLfan to find all of that content. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week with another episode of the DCL Show. Have a great week, folks.